Next thing I want to talk about is you have to be able to ask for the business. You have to be a closing machine. Look, the person with the hang-up isn't the customer. The person with the hang-up is the salesperson. You have to be able to ask for the business. You go through this entire sales process, right? Meeting for the first time, doing job walks, facility walks, putting together this estimate, putting together the scope of work, or whatever your business is. And then you get back to the closing table, and then I hear a lot of salespeople say, well, just get back to me when you get a chance. Or does everything look good? If everything looks good, why don't you just go ahead and email me or why don't you talk to your people? No. That is not sales, man. Sales is, look at, I need you to move in my direction. We got together for a purpose. I'm solving a problem for you. You're solving a problem for me, right? There's going to be a transaction at some point here, okay? You need to stop worrying about getting to the end result. And I think that's one of the things that I see mostly is that salespeople would rather talk, they'd rather meet, they'd rather go through all these steps, but somehow they freak out when they get to the closing table because they have no idea how to ask for the business. How about you just ask for the business? I'm going to talk here in a little bit about a particular tool that I've always used in helping me close the business. But the only reason why that tool made sense for me because I had everything ready to go. I had all my ducks in a row. I created the need. There was trust. There was all these things that were going on. And once I felt that, once the customer felt that, I was able to ask for the business. But I never left a closing table. Back in the day, I might have when I first started in my career in selling. But as I started getting smart about it, I was like, why would I go through this entire process and then get to the end of the sales process and not ask for the order? Who does that? Next one I'm going to talk about here is utilize a monthly planner or calendar to commit your prospects to a start date. I can remember back in the day when I first started selling that I was green, and not only did I have to understand why they would move in my direction, why they wouldn't move in my direction, did they see a need in the products and services that I was selling, right? There's all kinds of variables that happen when you're selling to people. But what I had found for me that worked great for me and had close to an 80% close rate was that I started using just a regular monthly planner and calendar, something that you could pick up at any store, or at a Walmart, at a Staples, anywhere. And what I had found was that if I had everything that I needed at that closing table, if the customer didn't have any questions, there was no negative feedback, and we were just at a point where it made perfect sense for me to ask for the business, I would ask for the business, and then what I would do is I would turn to a particular date, whether it was, and I cleared this with my service department and the other people that were involved in the company because I just didn't want to just pick out any hypothetical date. So I had an idea of when I could start the customer. But what I did was I opened up that calendar and I went to a particular date, whether it was 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out, whatever it was, and I said, great. If everything looks good, I can start you on December 10th. I can start you on January 5th, whatever date that was. And I had found that when I had penciled them in on that particular date, that it was the visual of me penciling them in that got them to really kind of sit back and relax. Because two things are only going to happen. When I do that, and I open up to that particular day, two things are going to happen. Either I'm going to say, well, I'm going to pencil you in on January 5th. They're going to say, whoa. If they say that, well, then I have to be able to circle back with myself and go, well, what did I miss? If we got to the point that we're at today, and I think that I had everything covered, but then I want to pencil them in, and they say, well, no, I missed something. Something is not right. Something went haywire somewhere within my sales process, right? But if I can open up that book and say, I'll schedule on this particular date, and I write it in, and they say everything is cool, what the easiest thing for me is to say, great, we got you scheduled on January 5th. I'll start getting everything ready on my end. I'll start getting my team ready, my techs ready, whatever business you're in. I'll start getting that ready. Thanks for your business, Mr. Customer. I appreciate that. I can't do that with a cell phone. I can't, there's nothing here doing this from a visual perspective that locks them into a date or secures a date. There is something about a visual commitment when you're writing that date down and securing that date with them, where they look at that date and they go, okay, man, I guess we're moving forward. I guess this is what we're doing. And I guess the other part of that for me too, that was really great for me that I had in my hip pocket, was after the sales call, after that meeting was over with, now a couple days later, I could go back and email you and go, hey, thanks for your time on Tuesday. I appreciate that. I know that we had decided on January 5th or whatever date we decided on. Again, I'm getting my team ready, getting my techs ready, getting all this ready. If you have to work off a PO or a signature, not a big deal. Actually, it's the last thing I'm worried about. Because I gotta be honest with you, at that point, that's just a formality for me. I can really care less because I know I'm gonna get it anyways. They told me I'm gonna start on that date. And even if we have to move that date or flip-flop that date, I could care less. What I needed to know is that if I committed you to that particular date, was that okay for you? Not only from a start date, but here from the customer. Because as soon as I commit you, if there's no pushback, if there's no negative feedback, I know I'm good, man. But it was using that silly tool that got me into that high close rate that I was looking for all along. Besides for having everything, that I needed to have, their budget in place, their decision maker, all those things, right? If you can't get those things, you shouldn't be in the sales game anyways. But that has served me very well. If you're looking for a closing tool to use, stop looking. Go to any store, go to any Walmart, go to any supply store and pick up a monthly planner or calendar and utilize it like I had just told you. You're going to be very happy that you did that. The next pro tip I want to talk about right now is master the sales process so you can shorten the sales cycle. Now, owners and managers expect their salespeople to perform at the highest level every day. We know that. But unfortunately, all too often, that just isn't happening. So why isn't that happening? Well, the reason why most companies struggle at selling and forecasting, and people, is you have a group of folks all working in different directions, creating value differently, selling differently, handling objections differently, closing the deal differently, on and on, without a structured sales process, without a step-by-step process, without an A to Z type of process. And because of that, their sales process, or lack thereof, becomes this never-ending courtship with the prospect, where no one is quite sure where the sales process really ends or how it ends, which is crazy. So when that happens with no set sales process, with no step-by-step process in place, you're winging it. You're basically winging it. And when you wing it, what happens to your sales cycle? It extends longer and longer and longer. Proposals hang out there on the fence and things just don't close. When you don't have a set sales process, there's no way to even gauge where you're at, no way to forecast. So the objective is to not only adopt the right sales process for you and your business, but to absolutely master the process. By mastering the process, you'll then shorten the sales cycle, and you'll find that instead of something that takes 10 weeks to close, it's now taking 6 weeks to close. It's now taking 4 weeks to close. It's now taking 1 week to close. Can you imagine having a sales process where you're shortening your sales cycle and now you're dwindling that cycle down to closing a deal to 1 week? What would that do to your business? What would that do to the bottom line of your business? When you can't close deals, when you can't close business, you're in this emotional free fall. And the reason is you just haven't taken the time to master the process or have removed steps from your process, which is even worse or just as bad, put it that way. Mastering the process means you're using and leveraging each step of the process. You're using particular sales tools, ROI calculators. Okay? By doing that, you what? You shorten the sales cycle, right? So master the sales process, shorten your sales cycle, and become that student of the game that we've been talking about. The next tip I'd like to talk about is plan to close at least one deal every day. So let me ask you this. What type of effect would it have on your wallet and your company bottom line if you could close at least one deal every day? Now that's easier said than done, right? Well, maybe not. What goes into the formula of closing a deal a day? Is it having high activity? Having a structured sales process? Does it mean being a great listener when people are talking to you? Does it mean having a high level of empathy and instinct and curiosity and a championship level confidence? Does it mean following a structured sales system like my 5 Reasons Selling system? Is it the use of particular sales tools? Well, I think it's a lot of those things, but for me, it's the power of visualization. So, the power of visualization, what does that even mean? Visualize your phone call to the customer as you're setting the appointment. Visualize yourself pulling into the customer's parking lot and getting prepared. Visualize walking into the customer's office. Visualize how you'll present your product or your service. I want you to visualize asking the right questions and solving their problems. Visualize each and every step in your sales process. What does that look like? How does that feel? Visualize wrapping up the sales process and what that might look like to the customer. So he knows you're at the end of that process and figuring out what happens next, what comes next. Visualize and rehearse particular closing techniques. Be over-prepared. Visualize how you'll handle objections in the event you get those as you're at the closing table. Then I want you to actually visualize yourself closing the deal. I want you to visualize the customer with a pen in their hand signing your proposal. When people ask me, how can I plan to close something every day? My question is, how can you not afford to close something every day? Use the power of visualization. And the last one I want to talk about today, and it's a biggie, is never forget the 5 reasons why people don't buy and what that 5 reasons selling system is. I'm going to take you back a couple of years real quick here and remind you how I got to the point that I'm at today. The people that I've trained over the years, the people that I've worked with, all these relationships that I have told this story before, and I'm going to tell the story to you too, is when I first started selling and I got into this arena of creating relationships and getting people to move in my direction. This was all new to me. And when I first started selling, I had what I thought was, and it was a great deal of sales activity. I was going out and seeing everybody that mattered, that made sense for the company I was working for. We had talked earlier about not everybody should be your customer, supposed to be your customer, right? Well, I made sure that I was calling on the right people, and I did a very good job at that. And I found success in the very beginning because I had enough activity and I had some things rolling, but I didn't see the success that I was hoping for. So I had all these people that I went out to see, and I had all these estimates out there and all this stuff pending, and I had just a little bit coming out at the very end. So when that happens to you, if you're smart and you want to know how to play the game, one of the very first things that you have to do is you have to retract. You have to circle back around to yourself and go, what's the most obvious thing or things that I'm missing? Does all these people that I'm seeing, do none of these people want my service? It makes sense to me. I know I'm calling on the right people. So you have to start thinking about, why aren't they buying from me? Why aren't they moving in my direction? And as I started getting better at selling, and as I started seeing more people, and as I started going through the sales process and sticking to the sales process, I started to figure out and start putting the pieces of a puzzle together for me of why people weren't buying from me. And as I would walk out of meetings, I'm not sure if I really thought about it as a selling system or a process at that point. It probably wasn't until years later that I went, oh yeah, that's my sales process. That's what I'm going to use from now on to help gauge my success moving forward. But there was a time when I started putting that together, and it really started making sense for me. I would walk out of particular meetings and I would go, it's kind of a head scratching thing where you go, wow, up until the point of close, I know the guy I know he saw a need. We built great rapport with each other, so I know there's a trust there. He told me that he was the guy that was going to sign off on this particular agreement or this particular scope of work, so I got that. He told me that they have a budget for things. And as I started putting all those pieces together, I was like, well, there's really only 5 reasons why somebody's going to buy from me, or shift that 5 reasons why they weren't buying from me, if that makes any sense. And those reasons for me was no trust, no money, no authority, wrong price, and no need. Okay? So I started gauging myself on these 5, and what I had found out is that if I was able to connect with that particular prospect or that customer, and I could get 3 positives out of those 5, I was selling something. And I was also using my proposals as real-time case studies. So if something wasn't happening for me, if I wasn't able to close something, I would go back to my office and I would look at what I proposed. Why is this hanging on the fence for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 20 weeks? Why did this never close for me? And that's how I started putting together that system for me. Because I would look at a particular estimate or proposal I would put out, and I would gauge myself. I would say, yep, I have, and you can shift these however you want to shift them. You can mix and match them however you want to mix and match them. If I was to walk out of any part of the sales process, I would start gauging myself this way. I know I have the trust. I know this guy sees a need. He's a decision maker. I'm probably going to sell the job. I know they have the money. I know that he has the authority. And I know that there's a need. I'm probably going to sell the job. So I was mix and matching those 5 reasons. And as I did that, now I was able to say, oh yeah, that's what I'm missing. That's where I'm dropping the ball. That's where I need to hone in on more at the closing table and make sure that he understands that. The only part of this particular system, and the only part of the 5 reasons why people don't buy or do buy, and in the selling system, is out of these 5 reasons, there's only one that really, they're all important. There's only one that really stands out, and that's wrong price. If I deliver wrong price to somebody, what I have done is and what I said before, I've closed somebody else's deal for them. Can you imagine you being a customer and you're super excited about working with me? I'm super excited about working with you, and we're passionate, and we're ready to go, and we're ready to do all these things with your business. And all of a sudden I get to the closing table and there's a need. Awesome. We built trust, great rapport. Sean, I couldn't wait for you to come in today. He's the decision maker up to a particular dollar amount. And I know they have the money up to a particular dollar amount, but that threshold I wasn't aware of or didn't ask the right questions. So now I have 4 positives. I'm like, I'm going to hit a home run with this thing. And all of a sudden, I put down a price that's wrong, and that customer looks at that, they can't sign off on it. They say, what they do is they try to be nice and say, this looks great, I'll send it up to corporate. This looks great, I'll have to get with my boss and go over it with him. What? Can you imagine, again, going through that entire sales process and then getting stymied? Because that's what happens. If you don't gauge yourself with that particular system, you're going to go through the entire process, and then you're going to lay down a price that they simply can't sign off on, and then that's, again, stymies the entire sales process. I'm going to tell you right now, remember the 5 reasons why people don't buy, and remember that system I just told you about. As you start walking in and out of meetings, as you start proposing and putting together estimates and all these things, if you're able to use that system, it has served me very, 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 very well. It's the most simplistic system out there. Look, there's all kinds of books, and there's CDs, and there's workshops, and all these things, and all those things are great. But I'm telling you, if you're looking for a back-to-basics approach, gauge yourself on the 5 reasons why people don't buy. No need, no money, no trust, no authority, and wrong price. If you can mix-match 3 of those, but still be able to deliver the right price, you're going to find some great success.